As well as using the filter pane to filter down the data that you're showing in your report pages, you can add an on-canvas filter that we call slicers. These are visual cues that the users can use to interact and filter down the data they're looking at dynamically. We've got a range of different ways of formatting these slicers to help depending on the data and the layout and the format of your report. Let's have a look at some of these options now. So I've got a report here with different visuals in it, but I want to use this white space over on the left hand side here to give my users a way of interacting with this and very easily filtering down the data. So I'm going to start off by letting people choose to filter on the category, and I'll add that to my chart, and you'll see that it's turned it into a table as we'd expect. But I'm going to convert it into a slicer, and we'll just resize this now. This is a different type of visualization, and now by default this is just showing me the same list, but I can use this to select different options, and as I do, my visualizations in my report change to reflect the category that I've selected. It's a really easy way to kind of swap between them and compare the various different data. For example, you can see the change in the shape of trends over time across all the different categories. So in the rural category, we have this really big uptick in December compared to previous and subsequent months. But everything else has been sort of fairly flat in that same period. So as you can see, as I click on each of these, it's changing what's selected from one category to another. But I could also do combinations of things by holding down the control key and selecting different categories. And as you can see, I've multi-selected rural and urban. If I click on rural again, it just deselects it, turns it back to a single value. And if I click the category again, you'll see that it clears the filter, and I'm now looking at all of the data again. That's a kind of simple kind of list slicer where I'm using the default options. Now we've got a couple of different ways of formatting this. So I've got all the typical color formatting and background formatting that you'd expect. I can also change how the selection mode works, but I can also change how the selection model works in this slicer. By default, you'll see that it's set with the multi-select with control turned on. But if I turn this off, you'll see that now it acts more like a checkbox, where I can select one at a time, and I'm not holding down the control key to select multiple categories. This is possibly more like filters that you might be used to in Excel, where extra clicks add to the selection rather than replacing it. And again, clicking on the last one's going to clear the filter and reset it back so I can see all of the data. I could also come over to the selections control and turn on the select all option. Now this actually has a lot of extra uses. I can tell it to select all items, and that's no different from having nothing selected at all. However, once I start removing items, you'll see that the select all option now has a slightly different icon, a little dot inside it. And this represents that I'm now doing a negative filter. So what I'm actually saying is show me all of the categories apart from mix and rural. Now that's different to saying just show me urban and youth, because if I refresh this data and suddenly a new category appears, in this mode it wouldn't get selected. So this is more like a negative filter. So it's everything apart from mix and rural, rather than just showing me the particular ones I'm interested in. And again, this kind of matches some of the functionality that you'd expect to see in Excel filters. And it's important to just understand that distinction. And I can turn off the select all to give my users more control and flexibility about the values they choose. Now within this, I can actually come in here and turn on the search option. So if I had a very long list, not much of a problem here since I've only got 4 categories to select from, but I could turn on this search box and then just type in the category I'm looking for, and then I can select it from here. And if there were multiple options, I could use the control click and select them as well. But it's just filtering down what I'm looking at in the slices so that I can find things more easily. Now that's something that the users can turn on and turn off for themselves. I can also change this from a list a drop down. Now this can be very useful, particularly if you've got very long lists and not much space in your report. So now I can say I've got a drop down, make this a little smaller, and this drop down gives me a list of all of the categories that I want, and we'll just leave it as all. And if I've got multiples selected, it will show me that in the restatement, or it'll just show me the name of them in the category. So if I have a single one selected, you'll see that it's up here. But once I start selecting multiples, you'll see that the title here changes to multiple selections. If you think about how you might build this report with lots of different visuals in it, I can use more space for the visuals and reduce the amount of space that I need for these slices with these filters. Now, of course, I can have more slices if I want to. So let's drag another one of these in for our segment. And I'll do the same thing. I'll turn it into a slicer, and we'll turn it into a drop-down list. And as you can see, this one's defaulted to all as well. And I might come in and add another one in here for year. So let's turn that to a slicer. And this one's different because this one's giving us a range and a slider so that we can specify how we want our years to be represented. If we want the full range, or if we want to come in and just narrow that search down to a specific year period. So I can build up sets of filters that my users can choose to slice and dice their reports in many different ways. And there's one more formatting option that I can apply here, and actually I'll use the year slicer to do that. So one of the things I've seen a lot of people do in their reports is to put their slicers along the top of the report and to maximize the amount of space they have for their visualizations. There's a whole range of different ways you can use these slices, these on-canvas filters, to help your users find a nice, easy way to slice and dice and get exactly the data that they're interested in.